That was one of the things. It was absolutely amazing to me, and but I'm glad I did that. I'm
Working
glad I
with
had
who
that
you
opportunity.
want to work with. Working with
Yeah,
who you want to work with. That's big.
yeah, you got to do that. Everybody should have that option.
That's a good point, Jimmy. A lot of people don't. A lot of people, I keep telling my daughters, you have to work with whoever the hell is right there clocking in with you every day.
Yeah,
That could be stressful because they might not be as smart as you. They might not be as aware as you. They might not see the world like you.
hmm yeah, yeah. My dad and my mom, they taught me they used to tell me all the time, like, Jimmy, people don't always think like you. That was the big thing. People don't think like you. And I never understood what it meant until I turned 40. When I
Like,
turned 40, I was like, huh, they were right.
you think like that? You really believe that? Like,
Yeah,
you talk, I mean, you're having a comment, like, you really
yeah,
think that the
yeah.
things work like that? Okay, maybe they do. You know what? And it's okay. I had to get over it.
Exactly.
Like, you know what? It's okay for you to think whatever the hell you want to think.
That's when I got to 45. At 45,
Oh,
I got
40, you got. Okay.
at 40, I recognized that there was a distinction between the way I thought and other people thought. At
Okay.
45, I was like, well, screw them. I'm gonna think the way I think, and you know what? I love them. Best of luck.
I
But
love
I'm
it
gonna
from a
keep doing
distance.
what I'm doing.
Come on in, Roundup Network. Good afternoon. We're a little early today, basically because I got back to school. Jimmy's doing a million things too. It is an honor to bring you this information today because not a lot of real estate appraisers are even going to want to share this information. They just don't share it. Jimmy, why don't y'all talk, man? You guys y'all keeping all this stuff under the wraps.
Yeah, we do. We do. That's part of the secrets, right? If everything is in a black box and you don't know how to get in it, we're the genius. That's just the way it works.
That is so terrible, man. That's that same mess been keeping my people down for the last 400 years, man. We're here to
That's true.
break that today.
That is true. Very true. But
So
that's why we're
round,
here today.
huh?
That's why we're here today.
You're right. And I want to say thank you, Jimmy. Roundup, homies. I'm Chris Haskins. I'm going to be your co pilot today. My mission and ministry is to raise your financial literacy through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. So today, my boy Jimmy Roberts, he is a senior real estate appraiser. And we've been coordinating this for the past month, trying to get him on. His schedule's crazy. He's doing all the stuff real estate, family, back to school, kids, college. You got a lot going on, brother Jimmy, but you took time for my roundup
Absolutely.
homies today. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure.
We got some good.
So one of the cool one, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you allowing me an opportunity to come and talk to you and your people because I know for certain, especially in that real estate realm, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people just don't know about. Um,
Behind the scenes.
they have those questions, and unfortunately, they just have nobody to get the answers from. Well, here I am. I'm here.
Y'all get some questions in today. We're going to go back and forth a little bit. Jimmy's going to drop some nuggets and what he does throughout the day, how he comps these houses. But it is imperative for you. The reason he's here, I asked him to come on to answer questions, right? And he's got a little goodies, some goodies he's going to be giving away. So make sure you tuned in right now. So Jimmy, just give us a little background on you. How did you come into being an appraiser? Because everybody wants to know how the hell do you even become an appraiser?
Great question. That is a very great question. Actually, I came into being an appraiser like a lot of other people come into being a lot of other things, right? Completely by mistake.
Accident.
completely, completely. As a matter of fact, one of my wife's best friends, her husband was an appraiser. This was 20 years ago. So her husband was an appraiser and was killing it. And he said at that time, and I've always had an interest and I've always been involved in real estate, whether as a broker, as an investor, as a landlord, or something. I grew up, that's kind of what my family did. One of the things they did as I was growing up. So I was
Okay, so
always
you come
around.
from a real estate background, grown from your peeps.
I do. My dad
Um,
and my uncles in particular, they've owned property since I can remember. I remember being 4 or 5 years old inside of a house, watching them repair it, and I'm sitting there, listening, soaking it all in,
gotcha,
and learning the business,
gotcha.
learning the business from from the ground up there.
That's cool. That means a lot.
Yes, yes, it did, and that, needless to say, that completely influenced me more than I can ever know. It influenced me so much that when I got to college, the first thing I wanted to do was get away from it. So,
Sitting up in the classroom.
absolutely.
Ain't for everybody.
Yeah, that happens. It's pretty common. So, so as I was saying, our friend, he introduced me to real estate appraising because in the end of it, I'm actually a pretty analytical person. I love people. I love talking to people. But bottom line, I am pretty analytical. One of the things that my degrees are in physics and high energy physics from the University of Michigan in Wayne State. So,
Good Lord.
Solving problems is kind of my thing. It's not
Thinker brains.
well, yeah. I mean, I love it. But see, here's the thing, though, and I think this is the thing that really separates me from a lot of other very technical people. And by the way, appraisers typically are very technical people.
That's why y'all don't talk.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons they don't talk. But one of the things that I've always loved to do, like I said, I love to talk to people, and I love to be around interacting with people. And that's probably because of my internal need to try to figure out people, whatever figure out people means, right? And when in that process of trying to figure out people, there's no better way to try to do it than to apply the scientific method to them. And I know that sounds funny, but I will tell you, that's how I one of my past careers, I got into it strictly because I applied scientific approaches to applying them to human resources systems and software. It works. It really does work. So anyway, that's
you went to college, got physics, you astro or whatever.
I went to
nuclear
high energy physics. So I was worried about splitting atoms and whatnot. And ultimately, in a couple of career steps, ultimately I made it back here to Detroit. I lived in Texas for a while. Was traveling around the country for my other jobs. Made it back here to Michigan, and we were having a conversation with our friend. Long and the short of it, he said, "Jimmy, you need to be a real estate appraiser." Wow. And, like all other good ideas, when people that you respect tell you to do something, you blow it off. So about a year and a half later, 2 years later, after it mulled around, then I finally reached out to him to find out what exactly it was that he was talking about. And, like I said, it wasn't that big a deal to me at that point because, by that point, I had owned a couple of properties. I had appraisals and everything had worked out, but I wasn't really into it. Right about the time that I was learning about, I was starting to show an interest in appraising properties. I was actually a full-time investor. I was actively full-time rehabbing houses. I came to a house that I was rehabbing, and I got what I believed. Two things went wrong. One, I believed the realtor. This is nothing against realtors. I'm a broker myself, but the realtor gave me some really, really, really bad information. Long and the short of it, there was a house behind mine that I purchased. It sold for like 120. This was back in the early 2000s. 120 was big money back in the day. Still is today, but he sold for 120. And I said, well, great. I'm buying this house that I was buying was for like 35. So even though this was my first get back into the whole rehab flipping business, I knew that if I bought a property for $40,000 and I could put 40,000 in it, even if I had to put 40,000 in it, my number was actually 20. I was going to make a ton of money because, again, there's a house right around the corner that just sold for 120. Well, come to find out, there's a lot of, and this was before I really paid attention to valuations and how appraisals are really done. Long and the short of it, while that house did sell for 120,
the other house. Okay, not yours yet. Okay,
not mine. It sold for $120,000, literally 1 year before I bought mine.
Okay.
So here's the problem with that, and for all of you all who are real estate investors, or especially
that's all that's on here, real estate investors. Yeah,
there we go.
The reason you come in here, you invested in real estate.
There we go. So we already know 1 year ago, for a little bungalow in the city of Detroit, your value today, or especially when this property is finished, is not going to be based on something that happened, 18 months ago, which is when I finished the property.
Mm-hmm.
Totally threw off everything. I ultimately I did what I call a slow flip, right? And what is a slow flip? A slow flip is you buy the house with the plan to fix it and flip it. You fix it, you put all your money into it, and then you're screwed because you can't sell it for what you got into it. So what do? You rent it. Right.
Yeah.
You rent it. I rented the house. I learned I had been a landlord previously, but
Hold on. How do we know we couldn't sell it? What happened there? I think I missed the point.
You remember that recession?
2008-9. So people don't. A lot of people don't have any idea about that. Tell us about it.
Okay. So 2000. So here's the deal. What happened? That 120 sale that I told you guys about was the highest sales area before property prices started to drop. In 2006, 7, and 8, we across the U.S., but here in Michigan and in Detroit, where I was in particular, we started experiencing the Great Recession. Well, I guess they call the last one the Great Recession, but whatever, the recession, whatever you want to call it. Basically, long and the short of it, that house that I spent $40,000 on it and ended up putting $25,000 into it. By the time I finished it, I couldn't sell it for more than 50.
Wow.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, if you waited another 2 months, you could have got it in their same house for 25. Prices dropped ridiculously. I was an appraiser at this point. When everything really hit rock bottom, to show you how bad things got, this was basically 2 years after I was trying to flip my first house back into flipping. I was appraising houses that were move-in ready. Now, move-in ready means a lot of things to a lot of people, but what I mean is you could literally open the door, put your stuff down, and be done. You didn't need to do anything. Those houses were selling in the city of Detroit for $5,000. Yes. Yes. This was 2 years after I had started my first flip. So imagine I'm trying to sell a house that I just finished and prices are dropping. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And no, I couldn't find anybody to buy. Exactly. Yes, Candy. I couldn't find anybody to buy it. But like I said, I could find renters. Right?
You could find renters. Okay.
I could find renters.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So the crash. So I just want for my roundup homies to understand. I didn't know what. So you fixed it all up. You're ready to sell it, but the market crashed and you couldn't sell it for what you had it.
I couldn't sell it for exactly.
All right.
Exactly. So I also got some rental lessons in there, and I'm more than welcome to talk about those later if you like. But the rental lesson. But anyway, I got some rental lessons in there too. But ultimately, what it came down to is I figured out something very important. I had no idea how to value properties at that time. And I knew that if I wanted to stay in this business, that absolutely had to change. But that was the first time. But again, I just told you, when you get good advice, when I get good advice, sometimes I don't always pick it up right away. It wasn't until my wife and I, we had moved back from Texas and we purchased a house. A condo. We had it appraised when we first purchased it. That was in 2006. In 2006, we purchased it. It was appraised, I think it was $180,000. Mm-hmm. We offered $181,000 to buy the property. Once again, that was the highest price in that subdivision for the next 4 years.
Holy cow.
But here's what's funny. Here's the funny thing that happened. At the same time that was going on, the next year, interest rates were still dropping, ironically. So when interest rates dropped, we knew our mortgage loan officer, and she said, "Hey, Jimmy, rates dropped. Why don't you refinance?" Mm-hmm. So we did. So this guy that came out, the appraiser that came out, I told you, we bought it year one, 181. 1 year later, this guy, interest rates dropped. This guy said the property was worth $230,000.
Oh, wow. Oh, that was in 07.
That was in '07. I
Okay.
thought I was a freaking genius.
I'm smart now.
I knew I was a genius. How could I be anything but? Right? The next year, interest rates dropped again. This time we had another guy come out and he appraised it at 185.
Ooh.
So, needless to say, I was like, well, I don't want this guy. I want the other guy. Right?
Oh, no. So the second appraiser came out a year. So this is 2 years later.
This is 2 years later. Come to find out, the first guy that came out was now out of business. And the reason he was out of business is because he did not do a very good job at being an appraiser. That's just not what he did.
That is so interesting.
And now, fortunately for us, we weren't silly enough to refinance and grab all that cash out of the house, and now we got a house that we can't sell. We just did a rate in term, meaning we just got a better rate. Same terms, but just a better interest rate. So we just lowered our payment.
Got lucky, bro.
Yes, yes, we did. We dodged a heck of a bullet for that. But that was the second bad appraisal. Second that I had. And it was at that point that I said, you know what, there may be something here. Because clearly I'm not learning. I'm not getting it. It was at that point that I decided to take my friend up and actually start learning the appraisal business. And I've been in it ever since.
Well, thank you for coming on. So Roundup, we're here with Jimmy Roberts. He's going to be talking about appraisals and how he looks at the properties and how you can get in and not make the same mistakes he made before he was an appraiser. We've all anybody that's been in the business for a certain amount of time, we've made horrible mistakes on valuating properties. That's just how it goes.
Yes.
Like, Darren, I thought that. You know what? You don't want to find out when it's time to go to closing. That is like, you got the house under contract for 150. Appraisal comes in at 120, and everybody's ready to close, and you're like, "What you gonna do?"
Yep.
What you gonna do, right? Because you can't borrow more than what it's appraised for.
There was a time in this over these last few years, you'd see that, right? These last couple of years when it was very common for people. It was very common for people to pay more than what the property was valued at.
They're still doing that. Well, they're paying more. There you go.
They're paying more. But the easy solution to that, of course, is you can always bring cash to the table, right? But like I said a year ago and the year before that, eventually that's going to come to an end, and that's going to it's going to catch up with you, right?
Well, we don't know to what magnitude, but yes, it will catch up with everybody.
It does catch up. Yes.
We don't know what magnitude. I don't think it's going to be like 08 because it's just not enough inventory. Are you seeing a lack of inventory up there?
Yes. And for that it's funny. People talk to me all the time about, we're going into a recession, prices are coming down. I've not seen that. What I've seen is have I seen home values? If you bought a home for $100,000 last year, is it worth $250 this year? No.
I'll be happy if it was worth 105. I would, I'm like, only in America are we mad.
Yes.
It goes up. Like, what?
Yes. And that's what's so ironic about this stuff, because to your point, I think we are in America, and that's the thing, right? Folks think that everything just goes up. That is not the way it works. It's just not. So to your point, I don't see yes, property value is going to flatten. There you go, flatten. Yeah. They're not gonna drop tons and tons and tons, but they will flatten out, and that's the way it's supposed to be, right? We'll see increases of like 3 to 5% per year, and there you go. I mean, that's great.
I ain't mad at that.
That's great.
We're gonna get to the meat, but Jimmy, where else in the world? Where else? Just anywhere can you buy something today, and it's worth more next? I'm like, where did people are like? I mean, do you understand how that even makes sense? Like, nothing else you buy is worth more next year other than your house.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
not always say nothing, but
Very few
generally,
things.
huh?
Very few things.
Very few things. Very few things. I'm like that. So we need to get out of this crazy thing. Like, well, if it ain't going up 20%, I ain't go. Man, be happy that it's even worth anything more than what we bought it for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now you're an appraiser. You're in the game a little bit. How does that look, Jimmy? And then let's get to some of the real estate investing stuff. How does it look for you on a day-to-day operations?
Okay, great question. So generally speaking, my days, fortunately, so here's a little tip too. I figured out what I do well, and that's valuing property. So I spend a lot of time browsing the MLS, doing the analytics, and out in properties talking to people. As an appraiser, that's really my job, right? So one of the first things I did, and this is a business tip for all you guys out there, even you, for especially you investors. As an investor, I know this too. You can get caught doing a lot of busy stuff, but you really need to focus on the important stuff, the stuff that puts money in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe as opposed to doing all that busy stuff like I used to do, you can also do what I did, and I'm sure Chris has somebody to do this too, to handle all of that minutia stuff, all of those calls, that appointment setting, all of that stuff that doesn't put any money in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So I was smart enough to, about 2 years ago, and lucky enough to come across a young lady that right now she's my office manager. I mean, she has taken over everything. She's taken all of that daily minutia stuff off of my plate. So I get to spend a lot of time doing analysis out in the properties and basically getting reports done so I can help folk get the best from their properties.
Good.
So what does that look like? I spend a lot of time right here. This is the nerve center right here. This is the office. I cleaned off the whiteboard a little bit so that the people wouldn't get involved with all my little scrawlings and whatnot. But I'm here. This is where I spend most of my time reviewing, analyzing property, comparing old MLS photos to new ones, talking to folk about the market, talking to agents, talking to investors.
Gotcha.
That's what we do.
I'm happy for that. Okay, so round up. I'm here with Jimmy Roberts, real estate appraiser, and he's going to go into some of the secrets that we may or may not know. And he even was opening up my eyes that I didn't even know that one side of the street could be a certain school, and another side of the street be a different school, and that could just destroy your value. Jimmy, absolutely. You dropped that on me. I didn't even know.
Absolutely. One of the things what Chris is talking about there is he's talking about you got to know, basically, long and short of, you got to know where you are, right? I know that sounds silly, but it is so true. The example to be speaking with, my neighbor down the street purchased a property, and for those of you all who know or don't know, there's a city that abuts Detroit. It's Redford, Michigan. So you have Redford, Michigan, and Detroit, and they kind of abut one another. As a matter of fact, Telegraph is the main street. Now, if you're on one side of Telegraph, you're in Redford. If you're on another side, you're in Detroit. Problem, though, is Detroit actually overlaps by a couple of streets. Mm-hmm. Long and the short of it, a friend of mine or a neighbor down the street, he purchased a property, rehabbed it. From what I saw, he did a pretty decent job. Came time to appraise it. It was about $30,000 less than what he thought it would sell for. Mm. We were just talking about that. That's an awkward conversation especially if you get to closing and you're like, where is that extra 30 gonna come from?
Yeah, you're looking around, right?
I know. Somebody got to do something. Well, the reason that happened is because he didn't know about his location. As much as I would have liked to tell him that his appraiser was wrong, he was right. He was comparing it to other Detroit properties located in the city of Detroit. And in this particular example, there's another thing too. We just hit on something called bias, but we can talk a little bit about that later too. But essentially, long and the short of it, homes in one location, in one school district, in one city are valued differently than homes in another school district, location, or city. I know it seems simple, but that stuff can make the difference, right? That makes the difference between, in this case, Getting an extra 30, not getting that 30. As simple as that. It's as simple as that. Um,
That's big.
that is huge. That is huge. One of the things, so I want you all to understand something. I speak to you not only as an appraiser, but as an appraiser investor, right? And the reason I make that distinction is because I get it. When it's one thing for me, when I'm appraising your house, it's just a number. It doesn't bother me, right? Whatever the number is what the number is. But the reality is, when I'm out there doing it myself and I'm investing in property, it's imperative that I know the distinctions. I got to know where I'm at. I got to make sure that I'm comparing the same type of house in a similar neighborhood that I'm comparing mine to. Because if I don't, I'm going to be the one on the other end, like, where I was expecting on X. Now I'm getting something else. That's not cool. That's not a cool feeling.
So tell me about your typical appraiser. My roundup homies, obviously, even including me,
Sure.
I was horrible at valuating real estate years ago. Now I'm just like, we look at them all. I don't even mind if I'm even off some because we're buying at a discount. But I did more wholesaling back then because I didn't trust my skills to determine the ARV. I thought I needed to, and I even think that if you're starting in real estate, I call it making money without money. If you can pass on a deal to another investor, that kind of cuts your teeth and shows the marketplace that you know how to do the stuff if you can wholesale deals. So what do you look at, Jimmy? What is your process? What are you looking for to determine this value in this stuff? And Jimmy has a link in the video description of a checklist, and it's 5 different things that he looks for.
It's 5 steps. It's 5 steps. If you get these 5 right, you'll be good.
Oh man, let's do it.
Okay, so let's take a typical example. You're going to flip a house, right? You're going to flip a house, just real straightforward, a nice, easy 1,000 square foot bungalow.
Easy. I didn't know you had easy.
Well, theoretically easy.
Okay.
Textbook. It's nothing ever easy.
I'll let you have that one, bro. I'll let you have that one. Roundup homies, y'all know good well. I've only had 2 easy houses in my whole career, but go ahead.
It's 2 more than me, but anyway, neither here nor there.
Simple. How about that? We'll do a simple 1,000.
There we go. Simple, not easy.
There you go. Simple, but not easy.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is actually, especially when we're dealing with flipping houses, the first thing we're going to look at is, basically how much work needs to be done. Repairs. How many repairs need to be done? Is this going to be a nice simple one? Again, simple, not easy. A simple one where we're coming in, we're changing carpet, doing a paint job, minor stuff, right? Stuff that does not require you to rip out walls.
Gotcha.
That type of stuff. If that's the case, then you have one type of budget. That's also very important, right? Because since we're talking about fixing and flipping, all of this stuff adds to the bottom line, and you got to account for that beforehand, preferably before you even buy the property. Right? So that's number 1. 2, and even in that same realm of trying to figure out what it's going to take to repair this house, the other thing is this: in today's time, in today's environment, one of the things that I'm finding is that it is harder to find. Unless you're doing the work yourself, it's very difficult sometimes to find folk to get the work done. Now, there was a material shortage that was going on, and in some areas it's still going on, but material shortages are one thing. I'm talking about people just to do the work, right?
Competent people.
Yes,
get anybody to do
that's right. Competent people. I guess there's always people, right? But you know what? Side note, one of the things that I'm finding, sometimes I'm finding problems with just people. I'm like, I will train you. I will show you.
People don't want to do nothing, man.
People, I don't understand. We're gonna have to talk about that because I don't.
Yeah, that'll be a whole nother video.
I don't understand. I personally like to eat every day. every day. And my daughters and my wife expect to eat every day.
There you go.
So I tend to work, but that's another issue, or at least I tend to figure out ways to generate income. But that's another issue. So, okay, so we got that. So one, we got to figure out what is it going to cost to repair the property and who's going to do it. And am I budgeting for that? How much time are we talking? Time becomes very important, especially when valuing houses, especially if you're going to flip a house, because your time frame is going to directly determine the comps that you're going to be able to use. Easy example. In the example that I started with initially, the house that I bought, and my first house that I completely rehabbed from the ground up, literally, the first one, that the house behind me sold for 120, but it sold for 120 1 year before I bought mine. Why is that important? That is important because lenders will not, especially in urban and suburban areas where there are plenty of houses, they will only rely on sales of similar properties that occurred recently. Now, recently could be a year, but they prefer 3 months. So again, if you know it's going to take you 6 months to 6 months to rehab a house, then you probably shouldn't be looking at a comp that sold 6 months ago or further, because it's not going to be around.
That's a good one, Jimmy. So basically, if the comp you're using right now, that's a 6-month-old one, and it's going to take you 6 months to you got your. Well, what do you do in that situation? I mean, you need to. What is the remedy for that?
The remedies for that is either one, reduce the time frame that you're looking in. So, for instance, what I tell people is, you never want to be more. If it's going to take you 6 months, then you're looking at 5 months today, 5 months back. And the reason you're looking at, and by the way, along the way, you're checking, because you want to make sure that properties are stacking up in your favor. But you only want to go back maybe 5 months. And the reason you only want to go back 5 months is because when you finish that sucker, you finished it. Now you've got at least one sale that you know of that closed within the past year.
Gotcha.
And, one sale is something. It's not everything, but it's something, right? So that's number one. Number two is you want to make sure you go out and find some houses that have actually been renovated. Again, this is important. This is important for two reasons, because trust me, I've done this one too. I purchased houses, and I guess we've all purchased houses in areas that we were like, man, this is a great area, and nobody else thought it was a great area but us, right?
Yep.
So
they won't even come out. They won't even get out of the car to go and look at the house.
Nope, not at all, not at all. But at that point, it is what it is. So if you can't find any that are in your area, any sales any properties that have been renovated in your area, and by the way, when I say area, first, I'm talking about maybe a 25 mile, quarter mile radius.
Quarter mile radius.
Then extend that to a half mile if you have to. Again, if you can't find a few sales in that half mile within the past 6 months or so, you can push it out to a mile, but that's like the last ditch effort. Now, again, I'm only speaking about properties that are in suburban and urban locations. And we all know what those are, right? We know what the suburbs are, and we know what the city is.
You're not talking about rural stuff where
I'm not talking about rural stuff.
Okay,
exactly.
Cool. Okay.
Matter of fact, I'm not, just so you guys know, I'm not even going to talk about rural stuff for the rest of this conversation, because that's a totally different set of rules. Right?
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah, let's stay, let's keep it in that box.
Okay. So once we know that, and once we found those houses, we're going to use them for two things. One, we're going to make sure we know where they are, right? That's a biggie. And here's why that's important, because you remember earlier I told you about, sometimes, I didn't tell you about this, but that's okay. Sometimes appraisers really don't know what they're doing.
What?
I know. Crazy, right? Crazy, right? And they come up with all types of valuations based on their opinions,
Mhm.
right? And they may or may not be supported.
Opinion is okay.
But
At the end of the day, an appraisal is an opinion.
an appraisal is an opinion. It's supposed to be a supported opinion, but it ultimately is still an opinion. So
Mhm.
here's why you find those sales. You find those sales beforehand because if and when this ever comes up, you have the ammunition to go back and say, hey there, Mr. Lender, Mrs. Lender,
Mhm.
I want you to take a look at these sales here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mm. Mr.
These are
Appraiser, you can
all
turn that into the appraiser.
absolutely. These are all properties that have been renovated just like mine. Why, what's the deal?
So you can challenge it.
You can challenge it. That becomes very important, right? You got to have the ability to challenge it because theoretically, and I say that on purpose, theoretically, everything in an appraisal report is supposed to be supported.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not supported, then the lender has the option to disregard the report.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
If the appraiser doesn't adjust it, right? Doesn't just make the correction themselves. They have
Okay.
that option. All right. So that's that. And here's the other part of reason why you want to find other comparable properties. The other reason why you want to find other recent sales that have been renovated, because it tells you exactly what level of renovation you need to go to.
Y'all getting that one. Repeat that, Jimmy, because I want to make sure they kind of get the picture of what that looks like.
You want to take a look at all of the other properties that have been recently renovated in your area, because that tells you the level with which you need to go to. Now, here's what I mean by that. And this is going to sound a little funny, but it is what it is. Let's say, for instance, in my house in particular, I'm renovating the house right now. This is it's an average area. Okay, call it what it is. It's an average.
C class, C minus.
It's a C property, right? Now, this property, when it's all
Wow.
said and done, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense for me to put marble throughout the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? That may make me feel good, but the people that pay for that house are not going to pay more because I have marble on that house because the area does not support it.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
Gotcha.
The other thing, now this is the investor hat on. As an investor, using marble as the example, marble is much, much, much more expensive than luxury vinyl plank flooring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every dollar that I spend in renovation costs is $1 less that I have in profit.
Dollar in, dollar out.
So if I can provide the product that I know is going to sell in this market and do it in an economical way, I make more money.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a skill though, man. It takes time to understand that.
That's true.
Took me
From an
years.
appraisal standpoint, though, here's the other piece. From an appraisal standpoint, you don't get any additional points for having marble in the house that should have had LVP.
That's a good one.
You know,
Well, that's a good one. Jimmy, thank you so much, man. You got some not dropping some knowledge on here. We're here with Jimmy. He's an appraiser, just telling you how 5 ways he evaluates properties to get the true ARV if you can, right? Because everybody's human.
absolutely.
Appraisers
And
are
by the way, when I talk about the ARV, I'm talking about a range, right? Let me get my hands right. There you go. I'm talking about a range. I'm not talking about a specific point value because your point value may be slightly different than mine. But as long as we're in the same ballpark,
I'm good.
We're good.
Get your questions in, round up. I've got a few more minutes with Jimmy. He's going over the 5 things to look for, and then we're going to get to Q&A, my favorite part.
All right.
All right, Jimmy. So what was that, 3 or was
So
it?
that was number 2, and I think that was number 2. We'll combine that real quick. Number three, and I'll make this one a little bit quicker. How big is your house? Now, when I say how big is your house, what is the gross living area? Now, I'm not talking about the basement. I'm talking about what's above ground. And here's why that's important. And a lot of my realtor friends do this, and they kind of throw us off. When they talk about square footage, if there's any finished square footage in the basement, they automatically add it in the above ground square footage. Well, that is marketing. and that's great for marketing. And I'm not against it. Matter of fact, I told you I'm a broker myself. I get it, but from an appraisal standpoint, Fannie Mae, whatever they tell you, Fannie Mae stands for. The forms that we all use for appraising says they're very clear. They're only interested in above ground living space when they're categorizing properties.
What? So if you have a basement that's finished, that it's not counted?
Great question. So it's counted, but it's
We don't have
counted.
basements here. Wow, like I've never done
Yes,
a house with it. We don't even have it here.
great. Okay, so here's the deal. So we have basements here,
That's
but
right.
it is not unless the Fannie Mae says that unless the basement area is made to the same standard as the above ground living space, it cannot be valued the same.
What can be made to the same, other than maybe the head space might be less? Is that mean same? I don't even know.
Here's the difference, though. Here's the thing. Yes and no. There's the correct answer. Here's the
Give me the Jimmy answer, and then give me the
Here's, can a basement be made to the same building standards as the above ground living space? Absolutely. Matter of fact, here in my home, my basement is made with the exact same materials as the above ground area.
Mm-hmm.
That said, two things. One, above ground living, the form that the appraiser is on says above ground. That's what they're interested in. The stuff below ground, that's why you notice they have separate categories, right? Like
I don't know. I never
below
seen
grade. How
Okay,
big is that below grade area? How much of that area is finished? Is there a bathroom, a bedroom, some other rooms down there? Basically, it's all of the stuff that you see above in the above grade area in the basement or below grade, right?
Gotcha.
Why do they say that? Because they want that broken out.
Oh, okay. It's valued differently.
Absolutely. It is valued differently.
I didn't know that.
It is valued differently.
It's a bedroom.
It's not that it has no value, but it is valued differently. And it's not, and by the way, that difference switches by neighborhood. It can even switch by property type in the neighborhood.
Wow, that's deep.
But it takes a real appraiser to understand that, because they have to do the analysis. And again, do you remember what I told you earlier? Not everybody does the analysis.
All right. So size, square footage, and square footage. I think we're throwing around square. Well, I feel like I'm insulated where I live. There are no basements, right? So I can say square footage confidently, as opposed to somebody in Ohio or in Detroit or in the Midwest, where you got to kind of do a little more digging when you're pulling your comps, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Okay.
When I say square footage or gross living area, I'm talking about the area above ground that's livable.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm talking about.
Man, that's
okay.
Deep. All right. Go ahead.
And that's the thing, gross living area. So so you want to make sure you're choosing properties that are similar in size. Now, what's similar in size? Here's the cheat. For me, similar in size is plus or minus 20%. So if I have a house that's 1,000 square foot, then that means that I'm going to look for properties that are maybe 800 to 1,200 square feet.
Sweet. Y'all hear that? That's a good one.
20%. If you and just so you know, how do I come up with that? I come up with that using this rationale. First off, I know me personally, I will love to pay the same amount. Well, let me how do I switch this? If I had the opportunity to pay $100,000 for a house that was 1,200 square feet, or $100,000 for a house that was 1,000 square feet, everything else being equal, which one are you going to take, Chris?
I'm taking the 1,200.
Exactly. And that extra 200 square feet in this situation, what does that really give you? That gives you another room.
I think it just make my bedrooms bigger, maybe
a little bit bigger bedrooms. Yeah. But generally speaking, it's the exact same functionality, right?
Yeah, no more rooms.
Yeah, it's about the same, right? Okay, so that's the rationale. 20% gives you, it gives you a little bit of growing space. You feel like you're in a bigger house. but it's the same functionality. So that's 3. Number 4. Now this is the biggie. And again, I hate to pick on my realtors and
Pick on
brokers.
them. We always do. They ain't going nowhere. They be around. I do it too. I pick up. I
Okay.
love them. I still love y'all.
Here's the thing: you got to forget about that price per square foot measurement, right? I know it's easy. Anytime you look at any MLS listing, they got it
Right
listed
there.
there. It's right there. It's easy calculation. Throw that out the way. It does not. It means absolutely nothing. It's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. And here's why. And I'll give you 2 reasons why. House sits right next to my neighbor's house and my house. We're both about the same square footage. Let's see. We're both about the same square footage. I take pretty good care of my house. Their house is crappy as heck because they had 5 dogs run through, 18 teenagers, and they never do anything to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? My house is going to sell for $100 per square foot. If I base that $100 a square foot on my neighbor's house, I'm going to lose money every time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. Because the condition is not the same.
Condition.
Price per square foot does not account for that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't account for, and that's just one thing it doesn't account for, right? There's a whole bunch of other ones, but that's just one. So forget about price per square foot. Look for properties that are similar to yours that you can compare apples to apples.
Gotcha.
In the case that we're talking about, if you're renovating a house or planning to renovate a house, find other renovated houses.
Gotcha. All right. So what's our last one here? So we got.
And the last one is simple. Basically, you want to find properties. I call it the trifecta, right? You want to find properties that are in your neighborhood that are similar. In your neighborhood, 1, similar. 2, within that are similar in size, similar in design. And here's the other one, and this goes back to time. You want to have them closed within at least 270 days not 270 days. You want to have them closed within 270 days, if as far back as you want to go, right? Because it's going to take time to close
the new deal,
do the paperwork and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And if you do all those things, what you're going to find is you're going to find properties that you're going to be able to use to accurately value your house that you just flipped or that you just renovated, so you can really have a good hold of what that property is really going to sell for.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you miss one of those steps, well, he may be at the closing table like, what happened?
Bringing money. So Jimmy thankfully, Jimmy gave us a checklist in the video description below. You can download that. Jimmy, what's in your checklist, my brother?
Absolutely. My checklist is going to give you all of I just went through five areas that I really focus on when I'm choosing properties to estimate, to come up with appraisers for after repair or fix and flip properties. The checklist got a bunch of information on it, but here's the thing. You can have all this information in the world. You can have it, but if you don't use it, you're still going to end up busted. So
you gotta use it.
Use it. That is the key.
It's a tool. It's a tool.
It's a tool. A tool does nothing in your pocket.
That's true. So you can get that, Jimmy. I've been asking him to do this for y'all. He's been working on it for a while. He has an analytical brain, right? So we got this moving parts. So he went over everything. Make sure you know how you're going to evaluate your next deal. And maybe, Jimmy, you could even come on and do a training one day, man. I don't know how to help us evaluate. Would y'all like that? Let me know. Maybe Jimmy could come on and do it.
Absolutely. I would absolutely love to do that.
That'd be something, man.
That's fun. That's fun.
One
of the things that, and this is one of the things that I am learning more and more. Right now, there's a big emphasis in the country about appraisal bias.
Appraisal
bias.
What's that?
Great question. Appraisal bias is basically when somebody shows up at your home and decides that your home is worth less because.
Oh, I've been seeing those things, the racial things, and
the
white dude and the black dude. Yeah, I didn't even know that existed.
Oh yeah. And now here's the funny part. You know, I don't know if you know this, but I'm black. Did you know that?
I got that, brother.
So sometimes, so this is not really all that new to me, right? But the good news is the heat is on, and there's a lot of attention and light being shed on this. Now, I mentioned this earlier about Redford and Detroit, and this is my last little thing, and we can go from there. Redford and Detroit, right next to each other. Historically, the Redford was occupied by non-black people. Detroit, mostly black people. The houses were built at the exact same time. Generally speaking, the houses are exact same condition, but one area significantly more than the other area. Why is that?
That's really bad, man.
Because it started early.
Really
It started early and it's continued. Right?
It burns me up, man. My people don't have a chance. All I want is an equal opportunity for my people, right? I just want us to be able to start at the same place at the start line, you know. So anyway, I took the Q&A. We got Ray. I'm not diminishing that. I'm just saying I can't spend a lot of time at this moment on it. We will come back around to that. He's in the D too.
Hey,
as a flipper,
hey Jay.
How much should I take off the value if I'm looking to flip in the next 4 to 5 months?
How much should I take off?
I guess you could take. I think he meant off. Oh, he did put. He meant take off. Yeah, take off the value.
Okay.
Good picture.
You mean because of the change in? I'm assuming you mean because of the change in market conditions.
Interest rates, yeah, market conditions.
Okay. So let's talk about that. First off, interest rates. Here's the thing about interest rates. Interest rates right now for a 30-year mortgage, right about 4 or 5%, maybe even 6 for some people with really challenged credit.
5. Well, I'm seeing 5.
Great, 5%. Well, here's the thing. Historically, over the last 8 years, or not 8 years, over the last 30 years, the average interest rate has been 8%.
I came in, it was 9.
Yeah. When I came in, it was 7.5. That's why I kept refinancing. Right?
5. I'm like, shit, give me the money at 5.
So first off, if you're tripping about a 5% interest rate, maybe you should be buying a house.
Not a good deal.
That's just what it is, right?
Good point, brother.
But so that's out of the way. In terms of the Detroit area specifically, home values, the thing is this: you want to be conservative. If you can push it, but you need to be conservative because we're not seeing those double-digit increases like we saw over the last 2-3 years. Just not seeing it. Mm-hmm. Home values are back to maybe that 5 to 7% increases. Mm-hmm. I don't know which particular market you're talking about, Jay. But in some of the areas like the Sherwood Forest, the Russell Woods, those type of areas.
South. What was it? What was South?
Southfield.
Is that Southfield? Is that
Southfield is a northern suburb.
Man, that's nice.
Southfield is nice. It is nice.
Bloomfield Hills.
That's very nice.
I was hanging out all that stuff.
That's very nice. Well, we got to get you when you come into town. Jay and I'll get together and we'll take you to some really nice places.
I'm coming up to Detroit. Yeah, I cannot wait to come visit you. All right, so he needs to just hold tight. He shouldn't be worried, right? Next 5 months.
No.
All right.
Whatever you were planning to sell it for last month.
Stick with it.
Stick with it.
Angela wants to know how come they don't use the science in their. I guess when you were talking about some of them are ill prepared to do these appraisals. And then Roxy wants to know all you guys licensed and certified. Do both of those so we can keep moving. We got about 5 more minutes.
First off, yes, we are here at Renaissance Appraiser. We're all certified, which means we can appraise anything residential in nature, regardless of value. Excuse me. In terms of why don't other appraisers stick to the science of appraising? Because they make some decisions beforehand. It's easy to do, right? It's easy to do. It's easy to pull up to a house and decide that maybe I don't like the neighborhood or I don't like whatever, right? So I'm going to stamp a value on it. Or the reverse is true. It's easy to pull up to a neighborhood in some of the swankier parts of town and make the decision that this home should be valued so much higher because of whatever, and then you find reasons to support that. Appraiser, see, part of the, even though I called it bias, which it is bias. But one of the things that is inherent to all appraisers is that, generally speaking, most of them are people, right?
Yeah.
And people do things for people reasons.
Mhm.
They come up with a decision and they find the data to support it. That's it. The problem comes though when people make a decision and then they're presented with additional information that counters that decision or it counters that opinion, and they cling to their opinion just because it's their opinion.
Just because.
That's the problem. Especially in your day-to-day life, that's fine. You have that ability. The problem comes when me as an appraiser choose to do that, right? Because my job is to be thoughtful and to base my opinion on the information that's presented to me.
Cool. All right. Y'all can see Jimmy got the
Yes.
thing. Jimmy Roberts, real estate appraiser. A few more questions. Jay, is it best practice to get?
Yes.
comps
If you
of
can get 5,
properties? Go.
if you can get 5, brother, yes.
Because I know in this up market, we were just like, man, shit, we need one to justify it, and we're good. So the markets are different.
Yes.
All right, cool. Tobias, are tax assessed values a good starting point on figuring out how much a property may be worth? Jimmy.
I don't know. So the tax assessed values are different. They're calculated slightly different across the country. Here in the state of Michigan, it used to be the state equalized value, or SEV, was approximately 2 times. Well, a property's actual value was approximately 2 times the SEV. They changed the way that they calculate state equalized value, though, about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So today, that is not a good indicator. Again, about 10 years ago, it was fine, and it may be fine wherever you are. But generally speaking, I would, if I had to say, if you wanted a yes or no answer, I would probably say no.
Gotcha. Let's see. I would probably say no too, but they didn't ask me though. So
yeah,
I'm like, are we selling for almost rural? Yeah, we were talking about rural. Lakeisha, are you saying that having a finished lower level will not significantly increase a home's value?
Great question. Depends on your area. I'll give you an example. Like I said, I finished my basement. Actually, my basement is finished, but I'm in an area that kind of requires you to have a finished basement based on all of the other stuff that's going on in the area, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's kind of like what Keeping Up with the Joneses type of thing. Appraising, that's pretty much what appraising is, right? You're comparing your house to what everybody else in the neighborhood is doing. So in that instant, or in this instance, it depends. It really does depend. Now, I will say this: if you had the choice to add additional above ground square footage or or finish the basement, I would say add the additional above ground square footage.
Why, Jimmy?
The reason you're going to do that is because you're going to make more money if you do that.
Gotcha.
The basement finishes are wonderful, but part of the problem with basement finishes and finishing basements is there is, at this point anyway, there is very little to indicate the quality of those finishings. So, for instance, Lakeisha, I'm sure when you finish a basement, it's probably amazing, right? But if I finish a basement and I just throw up some of that pine stuff that we all saw back in the 70s and 80s,
yep.
If I threw that up on the wall and painted the floor and called it finished,
big difference.
That's a big difference. It just is.
Oops, Mike. Thanks for coming, Mike. Angela wants to know, why is I used to pay $250 for appraisals. No, $300 for appraisals when I first started, Jimmy. Why are appraisals costing so much now, and how much are they?
Great question. Great question. Why are appraisers so expensive?
What are they? 600 now? I don't even know.
In our area, the average. I'll use the VA as our standard. VA and FHA as our standard. The standard for a typical VA appraisal is $625.
So they're double.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been 250 when I started. I don't
Yeah,
know.
they probably were. They probably were. But here's the thing. One of the things that appraisers didn't really talk about, but fortunately other people thought about, was that appraisers, the price of an appraisal was the same for 20 plus years.
Oh, okay.
So what other industry do you know of where the price of a service stayed exactly the same for 20 years?
So that's why it's going up. All right.
So that's why it went up. And actually the pricing increase didn't really start taking effect until about 5-6 years ago.
It went crazy. Arnold wants to know, if an appraisal comes in low, do you offer second opinions? I think we kind of touched that a little bit.
Do I offer second opinions? Do I do second appraisers, or are you asking, should you get a second opinion?
Yeah.
Should you get a second opinion? Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, you should.
Gotcha.
Do I do them? Depends on the situation.
Arnold also wants to know, do appraisers check the crawl spaces, Jimmy?
Yes, but here's the thing. When appraisers check crawl spaces, especially for VA and FHA appraisals, we're probably looking for something very different than what a property inspector is looking for. So when I check a property, a crawl space, I'm looking to make sure that the thing is safe, that it's not pooling water and mold and mildew and all that other stuff there.
Just an overview.
Absolutely. When an inspector does it, they're looking for completely different stuff.
Function, yeah. Mike says, keep up the good work, Jimmy. He's an appraiser.
Hey, Mike.
Can you break down appraisals? Tiffany, for multi-units. We don't have time for that one. I'm so sorry. Is there a formula to bias for assessing vacant land?
Great question. Not that I know of.
Gotcha. So, Jimmy, it is an honor to work with you guys. So you can get Jimmy's secrets for how he determines the value of a property is right there in the video description. If you're in Facebook or somewhere else, it's in the chat there.
Yep.
Jimmy, final thoughts for our investors that are trying to get the right number for the right property.
Okay. So here's the deal. First and foremost, make sure you get the right information. Okay. Make sure especially if you're fixing and flipping, and I know we focus specifically on that. When you're fixing and flipping, you want to make sure that you can be aspirational. Find the house that's sold as much as any area is as high a value as it can be. That's fine, but you just got to make sure that they're similar, right? Make it easy for the appraiser to say yes to you, right?
Make it easy.
Make it easy. The harder they have to work. Not everybody has my same work ethic, right? So the harder you make it, the more the chances of you being disappointed increase substantially.
Crazy, bro.
So it is what it is. Other than that, again, before you even bring in an appraiser, you should already have found out those comps, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't. By the time you see an appraisal, you should not be surprised.
I think that's a good point. And y'all go right there. There's a link right there. It says Chris Property Data right there. You can go pull your own comps. And what's crazy, I was talking to Jimmy. He's used PropStream before to pull comps. So Chris Property Data is going to give you a free comp pulling tool to do that. Go ahead, Jimmy.
PropStream is an amazing tool. I use it as my secondary source. And quite frankly, in some cases, it's right there, right at the corner there. In some cases, I get better information out of PropStream than I do out of my local MLS.
That is
simply
so crazy.
Because everything is right there. It's really amazing.
It is, man. Okay, Roundup, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Subscribe to the channel, like this content if it has helped you at all with your real estate business. Every time I talk to Jimmy, I learn something. And share. Other people need to know this stuff. Appraisers, they aren't sharing. They aren't telling you this stuff. So this is home for real estate investors to get all the data you need.
Absolutely.
Let us know who else you like to, what other data you want us to bring on. If you want an appraiser training, that might be something Jimmy would be willing to do in the near future.
Sure.
All right, Roundup. Anything else you want to leave with, Jimmy? Are we gone?
If you have any questions for me, I believe
how we get in touch with you?
you can get in touch with me directly with the link below. On the bottom of the thing, it gives you a direct link to our YouTube channel. Feel free to drop some stuff in there.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
See you later.